Hello everyone. Today is going to be an interesting video we got here today. We're going to be talking about the floor guardians in the League of Villains. This is going to be a no prep time 7v7 fight. And for the league we're going to use mainly the people who, the start of season 4. So Spinner, Toga, Shigaraki, Dabi twice, Mr. Compress, and Bangay. And for the floor guardians, the only two we're not going to be using is Pandora's Actor and Victim. Alright, so let's begin with the League of Villains. We're going to start with probably one of the physically weaker members, and that is Mr. Compress. But I say physically weaker only because he's not like the weakest member at all. With his quirk is actually kind of insane. His quirk allows him to compress people into little marbles, and this can instantly take someone out of the fight. Not only that, he's one of the more intelligent people on that team. This was shown when he was fighting Shoji, Deku, and Todoroki when they were trying to get Bakugo back, and he hit Bakugo's little marble under his tongue, and then they escaped with Bakugo. He's actually really durable for what you think he can take. He was able to tank like a catapult shot from Shoji, Deku, and Todoroki, which was huge because it also made like a big crater in the floor, and then he just got up like it was nothing and just looked at him and walked away. The only downside to this person, other than his physical attributes, is the way you have to activate his quirk is that he has to physically touch the objects that he wants to compress, especially during this fight when all of his opponents use range except for two, being Sebas and Alberto. That would be very hard for him to get in range of his quirk. That we talk about him. Next we're going to be talking about Toga. She's very fast and agile. She even outsped Sue when we first meet her. She speed blitzed Sue, pinning her up against the tree with one of her knives and almost killing her. During the hero license exam, she was also faster than Deku, and Deku was shown not to be super slow during that time, so that's kind of crazy because he also has a power that allows him to make him faster. His quirk allows him to go faster, and she was just doing that in base without a quirk at all. Granted, I don't think her quirk would be very useful in this fight because she needs to first suck up the people's blood, and not only that, her quirk is transform, and in a 7-on-7 battle where everyone can see everyone in an open field, I don't think that would be very useful for confusing opponents. And not only that, to use the other person's powers, she needs to know how it works, and she doesn't know how the Guardians magic would work. Probably wouldn't have the time to figure it out, or the materials figure out how to use the magic. So now that we've talked about Toga, we're going to be talking about Twice next, and I think he would be very key in the League of Villains victory with his quirk that allows him to duplicate most things. And this can be very useful since he can use this to help confuse the Guardians a little and help overwhelm them. The only problem with the duplicates, the clones, they're not as durable or as powerful as the original. This was shown during Season 4. My hero cloned Reppa, and he was taken out only by a few hits by Deku. And he could also clone other members of the League of Villains to help overwhelm the Guardians. And that's about it for Twice and what I think he could do in this fight. So let's talk about Bangay for a second. And she is probably one of the physically stronger members of the League of Villains during this time. She almost as physically strong as the Pussycats member Tiger, as he was tanking as they were going blow for blow. Tiger was also shown to be strong enough to help take down the League of Villains with All Might, and when All Might fought all for one. So it's not like Tiger is weak whatsoever. And also her quirk magnetism can be used in very different ways. Like she can magnetize items to make them repel or attract depending what they are. So she could send members flying at the floor guardians or separating the floor guardians and have them going flying with just her quirk alone, which is pretty insane. So this can help cause confusion with both parties. And now I really quickly want to talk about Spinner, because I don't think he will be useful in this fight. He's going to be absolutely useless since he doesn't have the feats or the power to show he can be causing damage to any of the Guardians. He was barely able to beat one of the weaker members of the Pussycats physically, and not only that, his quirk won't help him at all in this fight. It just allows him to stick small walls for extra mobility. You could only run for so long, and that's why I think Spinner won't do an absolute thing in this fight. So now that we gotten that out of the way, let's talk about Dabi. who is one of the more powerful members of the League of Villains. His quirk allows him to make blue flames, and these blue flames that he was shown almost cover a whole city, which automatically makes a city level. And not only that, he was able to melt the blue flames of Genton, the person he was fighting at that time, who could also cover a city in ice, so that already makes him more powerful than city level, which is kind of huge. He is probably the most powerful person on this battlefield right now, but he does have one downside to his quirk, which it does do damage to him if he uses his quirk too much. So now that we talked about Dabi, finally let's talk about Shigaraki, the boss of the League of Villains. And his quirk is Decay, which allows him to decay anything that he touches as long as he has 5 fingers on it. And that's really the only downside to this quirk, that he has to have 5 fingers on the item for it to decay. And this quirk is very useful, and it also works very quickly. It's basically a one-shot weapon, and even if the other person has a more powerful quirk than he is, or is more powerful at the time, shown when he decayed Overhaul's hands and made Overhaul handless. He is also a very intelligent man. He's also pretty fast. He was able to keep up with Aizawa in speed and combat speed during their fight. Granted, Aizawa was also very tired during this time and just fought 50 other enemies, literally, but it wasn't to the point where Shigaraki was barely keeping up with him. No, he was way faster him at that time. So you can argue that he can keep up with Aizawa even while he's at full stamina. He was also shown to speed Blitzu, almost killing her if it wasn't for Deku's quick reactions. So yeah, that's about it for the League of Villains. Alright, so now that we've talked about the League of Villains, let's get on with the video, and we're going to talk about the Floor Guardians. Alright, so we're going to start off with Aurora with the Floor Guardians, and she is definitely probably the weakest member of the Floor Guardians, but not to say that she is weak by herself, just among her peers she is probably the weakest one. She's more of a support class anyways, so this means she can buff her allies, and she can buff her allies in ways like attack and defense, which will make them more durable and more powerful during this battle. Not only that, she can manipulate her enemies, shown in the fight with versus Sheltier when she manipulates Sheltier, who is a little bit more powerful than her, by the way. So this means she can manipulate people who are more powerful than her, or at least on the relative scale level of her. But she caused Sheltier to make her think that someone was looking at her or about to swing at her, something like that, just to get her mind off Ainz just for a little bit, and that's really what caused Ainz to win that fight, just because of this one little spell, which is crazy in many single ways. Also, she can summon different animals to help her fight in this battle that are relatively as strong as her, maybe just a little bit weaker. And to get a comparison, we're going to talk about her brother to show you how powerful the Guardians are. So let's talk about Mare now. Mare is one of the stronger members. He is the second strongest member. The only stronger member is Sheltier in power-wise, and he was able to take down almost a whole city nearly by himself. It only took one spell to take down the whole capital city of the Empire, which was crazy because we haven't seen anyone capable of doing that yet in Overlord. So this at least makes him city level already, and Aurora almost as capable of doing the same thing by herself. It's just that she doesn't have any feats yet to show how powerful she really is. But anyways, back to Mare. Can also change the landscape of the fight with his magic. He can cast other various powerful spells that can do damage to others, and that's about it for Mare. And now let's talk about Sebas for the Floor Guardians. He is particularly just a hand-to-hand combat guy. His punches are powerful enough to one-shot people weaker than him, and he's also stated that there's only 41 more people powerful than him. Obviously, this is a little bit of a hyperbole, because there is people among the Guardians that can beat him in the 1v fight, but this also shows that the Guardians themselves are all around the same skill level and are capable of doing just as much damage to each other, other than the guild Ainzu Ulgon. He also has an ability where he can stare at you and cause a whole bunch of panic and fear into your heart, and if you are weak-minded, this will kill you straight up. No ifs, ands, and buts about it, so you have to have the will to face death itself with this ability. Either that or you die. He also was capable of beating Zero with one kick to the head, and Zero was also fighting Brain Unglas who is relative to Gazif, who is one of the more powerful people in the verse. So this shows that Zero is also one of the more powerful people if he is capable of beating Brain, because they rival each other. And also Zero looked like he was having fun the whole time. He wasn't worried about a thing, that he had no doubt in his mind that he was going to lose, compared to when he fought Sebas, and Sebas took his most powerful attack and he looked actually just scared and dreadful for his life. So that's to show you how much more powerful Sebas is compared to Brain. So that's about it for Sebas. So now let's talk about Cocytus. Cocytus has the most attack power during the Guardians, but he is also the least durable. He is the glass cannon, and he might have the most powerful attacks, but that doesn't mean he can carry them to victory. From what we've seen, he has the abilities to passively cause damage to people, though. He also is really good at combat-wise. In melee combat, he also has range attacks with his ice piercing, and then he also has defensive abilities, ice pillars, which is very useful. And this is shown when he was fighting the lizardmen and he was completely dominating them. And it's also shown that if you are a lot weaker than the floor guardians, then you're not able to cause damage to them. I think the League of Villains, except for maybe Spinner and maybe Toga, is capable of damaging him because they are on par as them. So that's about it, Cocytus. So now we're going to be talking about Sheltier, who is the most powerful floor guardian in combat. She is capable of taking a super tier spell, so this shown in the fight of Ainz, when Ainz, just to start off the fight, used one of his more powerful attacks, and she just tanked it with no problem. This also shows that most of the floor guardians should be able to tank at the highest kind of tier spells, especially Alberto, who is the most physically durable one and has the most resistances and protections. But it also shows that even Sebas and even Aurora can tank it. I think the only one who possibly might not be able to tank it is Cocytus, but that's still even debatable. Anyways, back to Sheltier. Sheltier has a lot of abilities. She can use holy magic. She can use all sorts of other magic shown in her fights with Ainz. She also has skills that she can use, like summon household, where she can summon her household and friendly fire her household. She uses this to help heal herself with her lance, which her lance allows her to strike enemies or allies, and she can use the strikes that she got with the lance, is able to heal herself. So she's only able to do this once, but it's a really good strategy if she had to, if it ever came down to it. Not only that, Sheltier is able to be besting Ainz, which Sebas stated that Ainz is more powerful than he is. Granted, we can take this with a grain of salt, because Sheltier is only a little bit more powerful than Sebas, and she was almost able to take out Ainz, and Ainz had to use a lot of extra hacks and abilities, and not only that, bring items that he usually doesn't carry with him, and he had to form a different strategy. So you can take that statement with a grain of salt, but that doesn't mean Ainz in himself is not powerful at all. That's not what I'm saying. Ainz is very powerful and very smart. It took his brains and power to beat Sheltier. She is also not that smart. She is very cocky and let her pride get in her way to let it become her downfall. And that's about it for Sheltier. Now let's talk about Alberto. Alberto, being one of the smarter guardians, is on par with Demiurge, who is the smartest guardian, and she is also, like I stated earlier, the most durable, having abilities to parry and reflect projectiles, having the ability to absorb attacks into her, also having the ability to absorb attacks into her armor, which basically means she can absorb any attack and put it into her armor, and until that armor breaks, she can continuously doing that, which is like you have to kill her twice, which is kind of insane, and you would need a lot of stamina to do it because she is a very durable person. And that's about it, Alberto. And now to talk about finally is Demiurge. And Demiurge was capable of using fire magic. He also has the same resistances as all the floor guardians. He also has summons that are just as powerful as he is, which is crazy. So he can summon 3 more demons that are just as powerful and do his command. He also was capable of fighting the member of the Blue Roses, Evil Eye, who was one of the more powerful members, and was also able to beat Entama in a fight, meaning that she is one of the top tiers in the verse, other than the floor guardians, that she can probably beat almost anyone else in her verse, which is insane. And he was beating Evil Eye with ease, not even trying. He also putting a whole city on his lockdown, basically, almost destroying the whole city while he was doing this. And that's about it for Demiurge. Now that we talk all the members of each group, in conclusion, I do think the Floor Guardians would win, because League of Villains just doesn't have the stamina or isn't able to overpower the Floor Guardians, and their hacks won't really matter in a way, because I don't think they would, for one, be able to get close enough to do their hacks, and if they do, they would still have to get through 6 more people to use their hacks. And I just don't think I can see them coming up with a way to be able to get through the Floor Guardians. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, and post in the comments who you want to see next, or what kind of other content you would want me to see me do on here. If you want a more in-depth video of each character, I can do that. But that's it. Have a nice night.